brace yourself for a journey through pop music's most perplexing sequel. Because what Justin Bieber does next will have just as many people rolling their eyes as nodding their heads. Bieber stunned both critics and fans 2 months ago with his bold album Swag, a triumphant return following years dotted with public missteps, social media drama, and relentless tabloid glare. For many, this was the kind of creative redemption story the pop world lives for. But here's where it gets controversial. The follow-up, Swag 2, doesn't just play it safe. It nearly erases the unpredictable charm that made its predecessor so memorable. Do you ever wonder why artists tend to pull back right after they push boundaries? That's exactly what's on display here. Where Swag felt raw and porky, almost as though Bieber was exorcising every demon on the track list, Swag 2 slips into a bland and soulless groove, filled with polished production and very little personality. Of the 23 tracks, only 5 or 6 venture out of mediocrity, each one surrounded by songs that never quite take flight. You're left wondering, was the extra time before release spent hunting for lyrics that could compare? Or simply filling out the runtime? And this is the part most people miss. The irony of returning collaborators like Carter Lang, Dijon, and MKG, plus duet partners Lil B and Eddie Benjamin. It almost hints at a repeat magic. But what we actually get is less innovation across more songs. Sure, the guest list sparkles with international flair, from Afrobeat sensation Thames to London's indie troubadour Backer, and even Hurricane Chris from the Louisiana rap scene. But this time, all those moving parts add up to something much less than their sum. Swag 2 heavily leans into 90s style R&B, but crucially, skimps on memorable hooks or melodies, leaving Bieber's voice floating purposelessly above the tracks. The production is competent but uninspired, and forgettable tunes like Need It, Speed Demon, and I Think You're Special border on self-parody. Die-hard fans might look forward to Lil B's uplifting cameo on Safe Space, but even that moment is robbed of substance. Gone are the eccentric verses that earned him the based god reputation, replaced by a few routine shouts. On a technical level, the classic folk trick, letting guitar strings squeak to evoke authenticity, feels forced here. Particularly on Mother and You, the overuse of these squeaks does little more than distract, turning what should be a heartfelt moment into something oddly artificial. But, just to keep you guessing, there are flickers of the old Bieber magic. The undeniable high point is Love Song, built around a warped piano motif that lets Bieber's voice truly shine. I want to write you a love song, baby. I want to write a good one you can't stop singing to me. Here he captures the wind in your hair exuberance missing elsewhere, painting vivid scenes like an aesthetic happening on the radio station, your eyebrows down in contemplation. Another standout, Witcha, offers up breezy fun, while moving fast, veers between confession and disco-infused release. Meanwhile, Everything Hallelujah strips it all back, a bare-bones gospel number that gives a shout-out to the people and pets he loves most. And Ear Candy tries to shake things up by blending Britpop and electric 80s rhythms, though it manages to trip over itself lyrically with some questionably avian metaphors. But here's where debate will rage most fiercely. Petting Zoo is perhaps the album's lowest point. Over a monotonous guitar loop, Bieber airs marital grievances with none of the vulnerability he's laid bare in his social feeds, claiming, "I told you that you fighting with a man," and dropping lines that feel less like music and more like an irritable response to a DM. And then there's Story of God, which will have listeners arguing long after the party ends. Picture this. Bieber closes the album with an 8-minute spoken word meditation on the Adam and Eve story, layered over dramatic church organ. His enthusiastic proclamations, like "fear hadn't even been invented yet," and taste the explosion in your mouth. Hover somewhere between earnest and unhinged. Is this artistic courage, spiritual kitsch, or a bit of both? Either way, it's the kind of risk that part of you can't help but respect. Honestly, wouldn't it have been wild to hear comedian Drewski voicing God? So what's left when the beat finally stops? Swag 2 doesn't erase its forerunner's spontaneous brilliance, but it does cast a brighter light on why Swag hit so hard. It was unpredictable, weird, and utterly its own thing. Will Bieber go for a trilogy, maybe naming the next one something like Swag 3, I'm Still Standing on Business, yeah, yeah, yeah? Don't be surprised. But as of now, Swag 2 feels like a minor postscript to the original, safe, polished, and hard to love. But, and this will certainly get people talking, should we really expect artists to reinvent themselves with every release? Or is there merit in sometimes just coasting along? Let's hear your thoughts. Is safe and steady worse than a wild misfire? Do you prefer the erratic brilliance of Swag or the careful caution of Swag 2? Jump into the comments and let's debate, because Bieber's latest will surely divide the crowd.